Hi, I here. This is a reading for the sign of Leo. We're going to do a Celtic cross spread with a Thoth deck, and what you see on the bottom of the deck is going to represent what you don't see coming. And once we get an idea of what the general message of this reading is going to be, we're going to pull 3 cards from the shadow deck to see what's going on in your subconscious, and to see if there are any further clarifications we might need. So let's just see what happens. Okay, so today we are tuning in to the sign of Leo. So if that is your sun, your moon, or your rising sign, or however else you choose today to identify with the sign of Leo, you can use that as a way of interpreting the messages that are coming through. And as always, if the details of these messages don't fit, that's okay. Don't try to force anything. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And if none of the details are really seeming to fit your life or your situation, you can always check your other placements, or you can stick around and see what's going on in the world of other Leos. So let's just see what happens today. What things should we think about? What things can we meditate upon, reflect upon, put a little bit of our thought into? Are there any warnings that we need to see? Are there things that we should avoid? Things that we should perhaps try to sidestep? Get around having to involve ourselves in any kind of avoidable, difficult situations? Are there any positive things that we should try to move towards? Things we can look forward to? Things that might enrich our lives, make them a little happier, easier, whatever it is that you're looking for? What things do we need to see and think about today for those who are trying to tap into the energy of the sign of Leo? What messages do my Leos need to hear today? Okay. So let us see what we get with our Celtic cross. So we will start in the present moment with the moon. We're looking into the darkness and trying to figure out what's hiding in those shadows. As a reading for Leo, right, you're represented by the sun. This is kind of a perfect task for you, is to shine that light into those dark places and try to get a better sense of the lay of the land of what's going on outside of the initial bright shining glow that is you, Leo. One thing I try to think about when I look at the moon card is to realize that it is still the light of the sun that shines the little bit of light that you have in the moon card. It's the reflection of the sun. The sun hits the moon, bounces off, and that glow is what it provides a little bit of an extra illumination as you're traversing through whatever dark, scary places you might be needing to travel through. Whatever this card represents for you, remember that you may not directly have the light of the sun shining for you at this particular moment, but you still have a sort of reflection of that bright joy, even in the darkest times. So a positive thing to keep in mind when you're going through a moon phase of your life. And what crosses it is the Ten of Wands. Oppression, burden. Maybe you as the sun are feeling a little bit held back. Maybe you have a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things, tasks that you have to deal with, and you're trying to figure out how to carry all that weight, and still let that sun shine through. So let's see what the rest of our spread gives us to see if there's a little bit more clarification or insights around this. Adjustment. Okay, that makes some sense. The Prince of Wands, that's beautiful. The Knight of Wands, even more beautiful. Look at that. There's where all that fire energy was hiding. We may be in the moon, but there's fire everywhere. The Lovers. The Fool. Whoa, okay. The Ace of Cups and the Emperor. Wow. Whoa, okay. That's awesome. So just here on this axis alone, we've got three major arcana with an Ace of Cups as a challenge. We have the moon in the middle of everything. All right, let's just see what's going on. This looks good. This looks exciting. All right, so as far as our major arcana go, we have Adjustment, the Moon, the Lovers, the Fool, and the Emperor. Right, so that's 4, 5, half major arcana. So this is big. This is an important message with that many with so much major arcana floating around. This is definitely some either big insight or big. I just keep thinking big, right? Okay. Right, so what's going on here? In terms then of our court cards, we have the Prince of Wands and we have the Knight of Wands. So strong fire energy, the active fire energy, okay, with the Knight there, and the Prince a little less active, but still it's the masculine force of fire energy. And we have the Emperor above everything. We have an Ace of Wands over there. There's a lot of oomph into what's happening here. But there's a moon and a Ten of Wands kind of like holding everything back. So, okay, in terms of our minor arcana, as I already mentioned, we've got the Ten of Wands and we have an Ace of Wands, which is also important to note that we have both a beginning and end of that suit there. We have the Ace of Cups, and that's it, right? Everything else is major arcana. So, what's going on here? So, as I said, the Moon card is a card of traveling through darkness, but there's still always a sort of shimmering light of the sun that is still allowing us to have a little bit of illumination just to give us enough of what we need to be able to see to get through that darkness. Now, there's always darkness everywhere. You can never really escape the fact that darkness is just an absence of light. And so, what the Moon card is about is traveling through a landscape that you don't necessarily know the lay of the land, but you have a little bit of it either from your own intuition and the little knowledge that you have of what is around you. But at some point, you have to kind of use your gut, your little voice in your head that allows you to sort of make sense of what you can't see and to possibly even make some leaps of faith with it. As I said before, with the Ten of Wands crossing this, I feel like what's happening here is there's a lot of weight being carried, a lot of tasks that are all seeming to have quite a bit of burden, oppression, and if this is, I mean, this is a reading for Leo, so you're the lion, you're the king of the jungle, so to speak, and you don't want to be held down or held back by all of these things. So it's like a caged lion kind of vibe. And I think what is happening here in the center of all of this is learning how to escape that cage, learning how to get out of that whatever those burdens are. And in the past, it looks like I see a very big transition here between what has been happening in the past and what is happening in the future. So the past, it looks like on one end, we were just trying to juggle all these weights. Adjustment, trying to keep everything in alignment, and okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I'll do all of these things at once and just try to keep them balanced. And you can do that for some time, right? But if the weight just keeps building and building and building, eventually it's either going to sort of crush you and stabilize in a way that is not recoverable, or it's going to fly apart. And with the Prince of Wands on the right side of this, I kind of feel like we were moving away from juggling and we were moving towards let it be what it's going to be. In fact, there's a really interesting look at the transition of the cards here. There's this like nice, cool, calm blue and this bright red and yellow bursting forward kind of energy. It's the prince. He still sits on a chariot. He's not riding around the horse like the knight, but he is still shining like a bonfire, right? And so I think what's happening here is all of these weights that you're trying to carry, and I think this is putting you in a dark place of like questioning even why we're carrying all of this weight. That's also what I think is coming from the Moon card, and we're just saying, F this. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we carrying all this weight? I mean, look at the 10 there. I mean, those wands, they all look very cold and blue and stiff like we see the images in the adjustment card, but behind it is all that bright, bright fire. And so I think what's happening here is this weight is no longer a weight that we want to carry, and we are ready to let it go away, right? As I said, you can let the weight crush you or you can let the weight fall away. But eventually, as the weight builds, it's not going to stay in balance. It's just going to keep piling and piling until eventually the amount of pressure being applied will either crush you or you crush it. Or hopefully not, I mean, maybe even both. So what I see with the Prince of Wands is looking at things not just maybe in a like F this kind of mood where you're just like I'm just going to ignore it, but being more creative in the way that we deal with these types of problems of responsibilities. It's more of an issue of realizing that you need to say no to certain things and you need to thoroughly embrace others. Be creative with your methods. Think very deeply about how you want to accomplish your goals. Don't act carelessly. Don't act like the fool, but we will get to that in a minute. There are positive qualities as well. But we don't want to just act like the fool and just say whatever happens, happens. We want to make sure that we figure out exactly what things need to be taken care of in just the right way so that way everything else can just sort of be more fluid and free form, right? It's all about pinpointing exactly what are the right tasks to emphasize and then let everything else burn, right? The chaos of the fire will take care of the details as long as you make sure that the stable fixed points that need to be dealt with are dealt with properly, okay? And with adjustment, everything was rigid, everything was balanced and flat and stiff, and that is a constructive way to perceive things, but you can only go so far. Eventually, things will get stiff and rigid and cold if that's the mode we're always working in. So we want to move from that rigidity to the fluidity of the prince. Okay? But all is said and done, this is not an easy task. With it being the moon underneath all of this, I think we're still trying to work out how best to achieve this. I think the sort of shadowy place that we're walking between is between really embracing this full fiery force and the sort of cold, icy rigidness of doing everything by the book. And there's a perfect balance in between, and I think that's kind of also a little bit about what I see representative in this moon card here. Right? It's a balance of those two colors, the blue and the yellow and red, and like it's all there perfectly balanced in the sense that it's not the full powerful light of the sun, it's the reflective light of the sun coming off of the moon that gives it a little bit of a sort of calm temperance sort of kind of energy that allows it to be a little bit more soothing and constructive rather than just burn, burn, burn. So that's how I think we're dealing with things. And underneath it is the spirit of wildfire energy, the true fiery force, fire in fire. This is the one of the brightest burning cards in the deck next to like the sun, and I guess it's got some Emperor vibes in it too, but not as stiff. The Emperor is really stiff, right? He knows what he's doing. He's following the rules. The Emperor feels more like the Prince of Wands matured, where the Knight of Wands is almost like the Emperor in his later days when he has realized that he can be as free as he wants to be as long as he is engaging in the things that really light his fire and staying true to the things that are important. Going out and being able to control that wild force of fire in a way that even the prince can struggle with at times. And that's what's burning inside of you, and that is what is going to, if not now, it's at some point eventually be what you can release and put into the world, is that confident energy of knowing that you are fueled by passion, but you are also not controlled by it, right? You are in command of it, but it's like riding a horse versus riding a chariot. And when you're riding a horse, you're on a living thing. You have to work with it and integrate yourself with that animal because you're a team. Where the prince is a little bit more logical, structured. He is sitting there trying to control the fire from a sort of more theoretical place. This is a more grounded in the world kind of fiery energy, and that's what's fueling you from the inside. And so then, as this sort of comes out of you, you've got this more rigid adjustment quality that's trying to sort of temper that down a little bit. It's manifesting in your life as the Prince of Wands. There's still some of that chaos there, but it's a little bit more controlled and more rule based, I guess, is a way to think of it. But you are still guided by this really strong fiery energy. Which, I mean, you're Leo, right? That makes sense. All right, so now over here, maybe I should say a little bit more about the ace there. I mean, I mean, to me, that's the fire sort of like spurting out of you. You know, we're carrying all these weights. We're trying to like, it's like this is the sort of spirit of the lion that you have inside of you that is not afraid of anything, that is in command. If he needs to take charge, all he has to do is growl and everyone will listen and pay attention. But he's also not going around and just trying to like pick fights and things like that. He's a little less arrogant than the prince. And so I feel like this is what's fueling you on the inside, and as it filters through, and it slowly you let just a little bit of that fire out, and that ace of wands in front of you, it's you trying to contain all of that power into a single like pinpoint that you can then carry forward into your life and use that as the tool to help you take care of your tasks. And I think with the adjustment in the past, we've been a little bit too tight on that flame, and so we're letting it loose a little bit more, and that's why we have the ace up there at the top. And so this is like you moving forward with this power in your hand and trying not to get too held back by the weight of the rules or the things that are, following the guidelines as they've been presented to you. Which is not to say that rules are not important. It's just to say that they should be something that helps push you forward rather than something that is stifling you and holding you back. Okay, we need structure, but we also need to make sure that we are not too controlled by that structure. Okay, so now here with the Lover's card. This is the card of choice. This is the card of committing to something. I mean, it could be a romantic connection. I mean, maybe there is some fiery connection that you are sort of been lit up by. Maybe that's what has inspired you to break away from the Ten of Wands and move forward as the Prince, leaving behind those burdens, not entirely ignoring them, but again, not letting them control you. Maybe there's something that has sparked this excitement in you. Maybe that's what the Lovers is really representing in your general energy, but I mean, it's a card of union and choice. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what that might represent for you, to be perfectly honest. It could be representative of you deciding to commit to your more fiery, passionate side of yourself rather than staying connected in the cold, we must keep all things in balance mode of adjustment. Which, I mean, you want to keep things in balance, but like again, you don't want to be too stiff with it. So maybe this Lover's card is tapping back into some level of passion, but that almost feels like what we would have if we had the Lust card here, and that's not. We have the Lovers. So maybe what's happening is it's a bit of a task to ask you to choose which of those 10 wands are the ones that you want to keep. Like I said, with the Prince of Wands, he has the fiery excitement of the knight, but he is a little bit more structured and rigid. And so maybe the Lover's card is asking you to pick what of those burdens are the ones that are actually the burdens worth carrying. Not all of them are for you, but you also don't want to let go of every single one of those, because if you break the entire structure, now you no longer have a home to stay in. I mean, a cage is still a home in some sense, but we don't want to be stuck inside of that cage. We want something that can allow us to come and go as we choose. And so perhaps that's the idea of the Lover's card, is picking which of those wands to keep and which ones to burn away, and knowing which ones to commit to and which ones are not serving you anymore. Okay, almost like how we think about cups, right? We think about what cups do you want to keep and which ones do you want to let go of. That's true of your passions as well, not just your emotions and the things you commit your time and energy to, the things you want to put your effort into. The 10 is a card of carrying commitments. So I think this is asking you to choose which ones to keep and which ones to let go. And that's why I think in our environment we have the Fool, right? The Fool is the card of let it all go. Let's just flow with it, And I think that is perhaps why the Lovers and the Fool are here together. Is it's a card of this pairing is, I think, trying to say that we need to take time to figure out what things we want to hold on to, what wands we want to keep close to us, and which wands we want to just cast into the wind and let them fly away where they're going to go. And I think that's the real adjustment, the real proper balance that we want, not being stuck and stiff in this rigid cage, but being able to readjust to only have the right amount of, like, we want to make sure that the wands that are building that cage are just the load bearing ones, and then everything else allows us the freedom to kind of, I guess, it come and go as we choose. Okay, and so the Fool card, I think, is about letting some of those things go, and the Lover's card is about keeping some of those close to us. Now, with the challenge of the Ace of Cups, that's also an interesting one. So perhaps the reason our challenge is the Ace of Cups, it's the only water card here. So it's as if maybe the challenge is, I mean, there could be a getting back in touch with your emotions. I mean, an important thing to remember about fire is that it uncontrolled, I've said this in several readings recently, fire uncontrolled is chaos. You need a little bit of water to keep it in balance. The adjustment card there. And the temperance card, which has popped up quite a bit recently, we see the mixing of fire and water. So perhaps that is a piece of what the challenge is here, is making sure that you're really tapping into the things that make you feel emotionally connected to yourself and your world. I mean, maybe that is how you determine which of these wands to keep and which ones to let go, is you have to remember which are the wands that are actually going to not just push you forward with that fiery force, but things that are going to allow you to put a little bit more spice in those cups that you already have. Right? I can almost think of a fiery wand like stirring a cup, like it's some soup, and you're like it's giving it some spice. It's really making it like sizzle in a positive way. And I think that might be the challenge, is figuring out what are the wands that actually really charge you up, not just with excitement and passion, but with emotional resonance as well. Because you might be carrying a lot of weights that are things that you feel like you have to do, but they're not things that make you feel fulfilled. And so you need to figure out what is the joy that you're trying to move towards, so that you can figure out with that Ace of Wands and that Ace of Cups together. I mean, we have those two aces. I really do think it's a matter of trying to figure out a right level of balance between what we want to move towards and put our time and energy into. And then there at the top of all of this with the Emperor, right? He's standing there strong, confident, above that cup, which the Emperor, he's a little bit of a stick in the mud, right? He's very commanding. He knows what he wants. He knows what he's trying to accomplish, but he can be a little cold. And so I think this is a statement about trying to get into your Emperor energy by tapping into your wild, fiery spirit within you, trying to use your knowledge of what you've done in the past and to figure out maybe the things that aren't working through your journey through the moon energy, to get a kind of a more controlled balance with the Prince of Wands. The Ace of Wands is you really projecting that into the world and carrying those lessons as a tool to help you create and navigate your life. As I said, we're trying to figure out, in some sense, how do we determine which weights to keep carrying and which ones to let go. And I think the challenge is making sure that we are using our heart as we make this decision. I think that's what it is. So we're heading into Emperor energy. We're trying to move towards a place where we want to be in command of our life and the things that we do. I mean, this is Leo. You want to be the king of the jungle, like I said. But in order to do that, you need to tap into your heart. You have to make sure that you're not just a commanding, aggressive force of power, that there is a touch of nice, cool, calm nurturing in there as well. That little bit of water is what can help the Emperor lighten up a little bit and be a nice, positive force for good. Okay, so we want to let this power fuel us. Let's get through this dark moon period of carrying all of these weights by letting some of them go and keeping some of them close to us. But as we're navigating that space, let's make sure that we do that in a way where we're always staying connected with our heart. Because, look at the other extreme. There's both blue cards here. There's the adjustment card where we're like just thinking with logic and reason and cold facts. Then there's the Ace of Cups, which is a similar kind of soothing blue color, but it's got that nice empowering red in there as well. And so that is a much nicer place to be than let's just follow the rules. But we also don't want to get all up in our chaotic fire energies to the point where we have no rules and everything is just like anything flies, right? Because if you go to that mode, sometimes the extreme can lead you back to a place where you're like, now I'm going to be the emperor and I'm going to suppress everything that does not follow my vision, and that's not a good place to be, right? You want to be fluid, and that requires a little bit of cup energy, as well as the fiery power of the emperor. So interesting. All right, let's see what we don't see coming. It's the Chariot. I also see this as a card of alignment, but it's a card of movement. So I kind of get this vibe that that Ace of Cups right there is the energy that that knight is carrying inside of him. So again, I think this is like you as the Prince of Wands moving forward, trying to get past the tasks that are in front of you, and that, as always, comes from trying to keep all the different aspects of yourself in balance. Tap into that fire that helps you move forward, but also make sure you're carrying that nice, calm, cool, emotional center that allows you to not just act from aggression and force, but from love and positive like intentions, trying to make sure that you're trying to present good in the world rather than just trying to construct the world as you want it to be. Okay. So let's see what the shadow deck has for us. So yeah, it looks like we're moving we're moving forward, but we got to make sure, as always, that we maintain control while also not letting other things control us. I always feel like I have a few sort of afterthoughts while I'm shuffling the shadow deck, so maybe some summarizing thoughts. Like I said, movement forward, letting go of things that are not serving us, but not burning everything to the ground either. Interesting. Okay. Oh, let's try that again. And then we'll see what the shadow deck has for us. Okay. There's the Ace of Cups again. There is the Ace of Spheres or Discs and the Five of Swords. So now we have a little bit more air energy. The only air energy we really had up to this point was, we had some of the Fool, and a little bit with the Adjustment, right? That's the cold energy there. The Five of Swords is defeat. So let's make sure that we are not causing any self-sabotage here, since this is in the shadow deck. This is in our subconscious. Let's make sure that our thoughts don't betray us in any way. Let's make sure that whatever... The other thing that's coming to mind is, when you're trying to determine what goals you're setting for yourself, as you're discerning which of the 10 wands to keep and get rid of, make sure that you're being really honest with yourself. Don't try to gain success by any means necessary. Make sure that you are really being guided by good intentions and that you are being honest and clear with yourself and not letting any sort of negative thoughts sort of corrupt or push you in directions that you don't really want to be going in. Because we really want to tap into some new positive energy here. We have the Ace of Cups again. As I said, we need to get in touch with our hearts. Let's make sure that when you're thinking about what you are trying to accomplish, make sure you're guided by your heart and not just your mind. And that's what's going to allow you to be able to plant that seed that is the Ace of Spheres and take those ideas about what you want to build and do with your time and put those out into the world. So... yeah, definitely seeing a sense of break free from a cage, embracing your power, but again, making sure that we're always guided by our heart and that we are thinking clearly when we're trying to determine what things we do and don't want to keep in our lives. And what we don't see coming from here is the Devil. Yeah, I get that. Like I said, I think we are wanting to tap into the Emperor without getting too heavily into the negative aspects of the Emperor. There's so much fire here. Don't let it get out of control. If you're feeling trapped in a dark place and you're ready to just escape and move on to something bigger and better, don't let it get away from you. Make sure that you're being honest, you're thinking with your heart, you're thinking clearly, and getting all your things in alignment. With the Chariot, we want to make sure that everything's tuned up properly, so that as we're carrying all of this positive energy into the world, something doesn't break down halfway, and we get stuck, or some messages are not coming through as they need to. So let's not let the sort of destructive nature of the devil keep us from being able to move into a positive place with all of this potentially powerful fire energy. Right, the devil can show us strength, but he can also be very seductive and corrupt us by trying to pull us too far away from what our actual goals are. So make sure you're keeping things in balance. And yeah, I think that's all I've got for you today, Leo. I hope this was helpful, or enjoyable, or whatever you were hoping to get from this. As always, if there are other messages or different messages that came through as I was going through this, use your intuition to determine for yourself the messages that you need to receive. I'm just here to facilitate the process of explaining how these energies are sort of feeling to me, and trying to express to you what is seems to be coming out as the messages here. So hopefully that was helpful for you. And as always, if it doesn't resonate, just leave it behind. But yeah, that's all I have. Please like and subscribe. If you have any comments or feedback, please feel free to leave a comment down below. And if there's anyone that you know who would enjoy or benefit from this or any of my videos, please feel free to share them as you see fit. And yeah, Leo, that's all I have for you today. Stand in your power, but don't let it control you. That's all I can say. So have a great rest of your day.